Hello everyone, I hope you all are keeping fine. This is the fifth clip on the chapter, The End of Bipolarity, and in this clip we'll be learning about the Middle East crisis. Now, under the Middle East crisis, we'll be covering three wars fought by the United States by which the United States hegemony got established more closely. Alright, so the three wars are the first Gulf War fought in 1991 under the presidency of George H.W. Bush, and the name of the operation being Operation Desert Storm. Second, the Afghanistan War in 2001 under the presidency of George W. Bush or Junior Bush, the son of George H.W. Bush, and the name of the operation, Operation Enduring Freedom. And then the third war, that is the second Gulf War in 2003 under the presidency of George W. Bush, and the name of the operation was Operation Iraqi Freedom. Although this is the proper order for the wars, however, in this clip we'll be covering the wars in this order, okay, because there's a link between the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War, so we're going to do it a little different way for better understanding. All right, now it is important that you remember the names of the operations for each war, and it's very easy to remember the names. Just remember the order: first Gulf War, second Gulf War, and Afghanistan War, and do not get confused with the years. All right, and then you just go say just first Gulf War, which we have Operation Desert Storm, take D. Second Gulf War, Operation Iraqi Freedom, so take the I. And the Afghanistan War, take the E from the Operation Enduring Freedom, and it becomes DI. Okay, so just remember, lots of war, obviously people die. Okay, this is how you can remember the names of the operations easier. So we'll do the wars in detail. We have the first Gulf War. Now this is a map of Gulf region, and the first Gulf War took place because of the conflict between these two regions, that is Iraq and Kuwait. Okay, so on 2nd August 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait, which was not accepted by the world, especially the United States. And therefore, the United Nations, led by the United States with a coalition force of about 34 countries, they waged war against Iraq. And this operation was termed as Operation Desert Storm. All right. Now, although Saddam Hussein promised mother of all battles, Iraq was defeated, and this war is known as the First Gulf War. Okay. There are different names for this Gulf War. It is also known by the Persian Gulf War. Okay, first Gulf War, as we have already mentioned. Then it is also known by Kuwait War and also by First Iraq War. So you should not be confused with the different names. All right. If any question comes by these names, it just means First Gulf War. Okay, now we're going to do the war in detail. So the two leaders that was involved in the first Gulf War was George H.W. Bush of the United States and Saddam Hussein of Iraq. All right. So the causes for the first Gulf War, okay, was first Iraq's claim over Kuwait. Now, the Iraq-Kuwait dispute actually involved Iraq's claim to Kuwait's territory. The Iraqi government says that Kuwait had been a part of the Ottoman Empire's province of Basra, something that Iraq claimed made Kuwait a rightful Iraqi territory. Okay, and because of this, they waged a war and invaded Kuwait. Right. Second was because of the huge debt due to Iran-Iraq war. Now, there was a very long war which went on between Iraq and Iran, because of which Iraq was in huge debt towards Kuwait as well as Saudi Arabia. All right, and Iraq government also insisted the Kuwait and the Saudi Arabian government to cancel out their debt, of course, which both of these governments denied. So obviously, if Kuwait becomes a part of Iraq, then they need not pay that debt. Okay, then we have Kuwait's non-compliance to OPEC. Now, OPEC is an organization of the petroleum exporting countries. It's an organization of 13 countries which meets every year. Okay, and during their meeting, they also set a certain quota for the oil production. Now, Iraq accused Kuwait of exceeding the OPEC quotas of the oil production, which has led to the price fall in the oil, ultimately leading to the economic losses of Iraq. And finally, we have Kuwait's slant drilling in Rumalia oil field. Now, as you can see in the map, Rumalia oil field is located in Iraq, and Iraq accused Kuwait of slant drilling in Rumalia oil field of Iraq, which has given huge losses to Iraq. Okay, and Iraq also has. It is also said that Iraq also has aims to acquire the oil reserves of Kuwait, which is one of the reasons for the invasion of Kuwait by Iraq. Then let's look at the events of the First Gulf War. Now, on 2nd August 1990, Iraq invades Kuwait. Now, because of the fear of the spread of Iraq's invasion, following the request from the Saudi Arabian government to the United States launches Operation Desert Shield on August 7, 1990, under which they sent American armies to Saudi Arabia. All right. And then on August 8, 1990, Iraq annexes Kuwait. Iraq increased its occupation forces to some 300,000 troops. So on November 29, 1990, the United Nations Security Council authorized the use of all necessary means of force against Iraq if it did not withdraw from Kuwait by January 15. However, by January 15, there was no action from Iraq, so Operation Desert Storm was launched on January 17, 1991. So under the Operation Desert Storm, the coalition forces, they began a 5-week bombardment of Iraqi command and control targets from air and sea. Okay, and this coalition forces, they swiftly drove Iraq from Kuwait, advancing into Iraq and reaching a ceasefire within only 100 hours. And finally, on February 28, 1991, Bush declared a ceasefire, okay, ending the First Persian Gulf War. Now, the aftermath of the First Gulf War, according to the peace terms that Saddam Hussein subsequently accepted, it was that Iraq would recognize Kuwait's sovereignty. Second, the economic sanctions that was put on Iraq would continue. Now, economic sanctions would mean no countries will trade with Iraq. Okay, and then besides that, they were also to get rid of all their weapons of mass destruction, which would include nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. And finally, the Iraq government was to allow the United Nations weapon inspectors to enter Iraq and to inspect any development of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. All right. Now, this is important. Because of the First Gulf War, the United States hegemony got established more closely or more clearly. Right? The first one is the composition of the force. Now, we know that a massive coalition force from 34 countries fought against Iraq, and the name of the operation was Operation Desert Storm, which was a United Nations operation. However, this operation was led by an American general named Schwarzkopf. And the coalition force consisted of 660,000 troops, out of which 75% of the troops were from the United States alone, which clearly shows United States hegemony. All right, second one we have is the technological gap, under which we have computer war and video game war. Now, during that war, huge technological gap could be seen. It revealed the vast technological gap that had opened up between the United States military and that of the other states, which means the Allies as well as Iraq. Smart bombs were used, which would hit the target with accuracy and precision on just a click of a button. And that is why it was also called computer war. There were so many video footages of the war. The war was heavily televised. Okay, it was covered live on the news by CNN, and for the first time, people all over the world watched live pictures of missiles hitting the targets and fighters departing from aircraft carriers. So it was like a video game war. For the first time, you watch the war live, sitting comfortably at your home and sitting on your sofa, you see the bombs being thrown. Okay, so with this war, the United States hegemony got established more clearly. Then we have the Iraq War, or the Second Gulf War, which was fought in 2003. The United States, with a coalition of 40 countries, started Iraq's invasion for the second time on 19th March 2003 under the code name Operation Iraqi Freedom. All right. The leaders involved in this war were George W. Bush or George Bush Jr., the son of George H.W. Bush. All right. And then Saddam Hussein of Iraq. Since when the United States left after winning the first Gulf War, they didn't make any major change in the leader of Iraq. So he was the same leader. Now, the causes of Iraq war were, first, Iraq's possession of weapons of mass destruction. Now, the governments of the United States and the United Kingdom, they claimed that Iraq was having weapons of mass destruction, which caused a great threat, not only to their security, but also to the peace of the world. All right. Second is Saddam's support to terrorists. The United States blamed Saddam Hussein of supporting terrorist activities like Al-Qaeda, which is again a threat to the peace and security in the world. So they waged war in order to stop Saddam and to remove him from the administration. Okay. Third is to establish democratic government in Iraq. Now, United States was not in good terms with Saddam Hussein, and United States also blamed him of Iraqi people's suffering. So it is said that United States invaded Iraq so as to set up a puppet government. All right, which would be not only friendly to the United States, but also which would end to the suffering of Iraq's people. And then we have Iraq's refusal to admit inspectors. Now, it was decided, we all have already done it earlier, that one of the peace terms was to admit the weapon inspectors in Iraq. However, in 1998, Iraq denied to admit the weapon inspectors into Iraq, and because of this, United States waged war. Then we have the events of the Iraq War. Now, as already mentioned, Iraq refused to admit the inspectors in their country in 1998. And because of the Iraq's refusal to admit the weapon inspectors, in 2002, the United Nations passes a resolution warning Iraq and calling for the return of the weapon inspectors. But then in 2003, President Bush and the British Prime Minister at that time, Tony Blair, now they declared that Iraq was still, continuing to hinder the United Nations inspections, and that it still has weapons of mass destruction. So on March 17, 2003, the United Nations and the United Kingdom, this time without taking the permission of United Nations or without seeking United Nations endorsement, they issued an ultimatum to Saddam Hussein to step down from power and leave Iraq within 48 hours or face war. Now, when Saddam refused to leave, the United States and the Allied forces, they launched an attack on Iraq on March 20th under the Operation Iraqi Freedom, and thus became what came to be known as Iraq War. All right. On December 13, 2003, Saddam Hussein was captured and he was turned over to Iraqi authorities. And on December 30th, 2006, he was executed after he was convicted of crimes against humanity. All right. Now, if you look at the criticisms of this war, the main cause of the war, which the United States claimed that Iraq possessed the weapons of mass destruction. However, this weapon of mass destruction in Iraq later was said that it was nowhere to be found. All right. Second one is the legality of invasion. The United States-led coalition of 40 countries invasion of Iraq actually was not supported by the United Nations. The United Nations refused to mandate the invasion. And third one we have is the human casualties. The death number of Iraqi civilians was 50,000 and American military personnel was 3,000. And moreover, millions of Iraqis had to flee their country. Okay, they fled the country and many were displaced within the country. And then, of course, the cost on the war was so high. It has been estimated that the cost was about $1.9 trillion, right? And finally, we have the hidden objective. Now, it is said that the main aim of the United Nations attack on Iraq is to be of getting control over Iraqi oil fields, okay, to establish a US-friendly government in Iraq so that they can take the advantage of the oil. So this is all about the two Gulf Wars. Now, if you have noticed, I've used Iraq War for the second war in Iraq, because usually Gulf War is used for the first war in Iraq and Iraq War for the second war. Okay, so in examinations, if it's written first Gulf War or second Gulf War, then it is very easy for you. However, if they have written Gulf War, then the examiner is looking for answers of the first Gulf War. Okay, and if it's written Iraq War, then you are going to write about the second Gulf War, that is this war from 2003. All right, so this is what you have to keep it in your mind, and I hope you have understood this clip. And in my next video, I'll be covering the Afghanistan war. So until I see you in my next video, take care and bye-bye.